Hey guys, Julian here from synthwavepro.com. Thanks for hanging out with me. So today in this tutorial, let's create a preset that is versatile for synthwave, chillwave, and other synthwave adjacent genres. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you can later reference this tutorial because we're going to be covering quite a bit. Also, if you wish to support the channel, please consider clicking some of the links in the description. And if you're digging this t-shirt, well, you can always grab one at synthwavepro.shop along with other merch.
Now, without further ado, let's get started.
All right, so thanks for joining me. This is a bit of a chillwave, synthwave adjacent with some, R&B elements, and we're going to be synthesizing one of these sounds here, in particular this chord sequence here. So this is what it sounds like. All right, fairly straightforward. This is more of a chill wave, sort of synthwave adjacent style with some, I guess you can say, R&B elements inserted. You'll hear a lot of this sort of hybrid in a lot of like modern day synthwave tracks. But anyways, this is what this sounds like when it's in solo. All right, so an octave lower, it sounds like this. All right, so let's get started. If you are using another synth, go ahead and grab it. And I'll be doing this in Serum. So let's go ahead and create that MIDI channel. Call this guy Chords Tutorial. Whoops. And I'm going to pull up an instance of Serum right over here. Now, right off the rip, the first thing I want to do is engage this filter because I don't want to hear all these higher frequencies. I'm just going to open this up and head on over to oscillator A. This is what it sounds like. Okay, an octave higher. All right, so this is a Sawtooth. First thing I want to do is crank up the unison, so the voices, right? We want it to sound nice and thick. This is what it sounds like now. All right, not too flattering. Let me just insert this MIDI data and play what this sounds like. All right, so let's scale back on the amount of detuning we have. I'm going to scale this back. All right, so we're scaling back on the amount of detuning when it comes to the individual voices here. So I have it set to about 0.04. As for the blend, cool, somewhere around here is fine. The next thing I want to do is engage the warp menu here and select the bend plus minus. All right, so this essentially warps our waveform. You can see our Sawtooth takes on a different characteristic. Now sound-wise, this is what it sounds like. Now in this context, I like to use this almost as an EQ because you'll notice that when I turn this knob to about 5 o'clock, it becomes very boxy. And when I turn it to 7 o'clock, we now thin out the sound. All right, so I'm going to set it to about 25, 26% or minus 26%. I don't want it to sound too boxy. Now I'm going to give my amp envelope a little bit of breathing room here. With a release, just going to increase this to about 400 milliseconds. And as for envelope 2, well, I'm going to attach this to our filter cutoff. I'm going to lower this. About 127, and then I am going to lower the sustain here. Okay, so far so good. Let's see what we can do for this sound here. I don't want it to start so abruptly. I want there to be a sort of gradual ramp. So what I'm going to do here is bump up the attack. Get that wah-wah sound. So I have mine set to about 52 milliseconds. You can experiment with other values. And as for the filter release, let's go ahead and crank this up a little more. What about the decay? We can tighten up our sound if we reduce our decay. Let me exaggerate it. Okay, that's a little too short. Somewhere around 600 milliseconds, all right? Cool. Now let's turn to the noise generator here, and I'm going to select analog, bright white, and make sure that I am routing this noise generator to the filter. This is what it sounds like if I crank this up. It's a little too much. All right, so it's just adding a little bit of dirt to the sound. All right, so before moving on to another module, let's go ahead and engage our portamento option here. All right, this creates a nice sort of sliding effect. So we're sort of gliding into the next note. Now, obviously this is a little too much, so I'm going to scale this back. All right, so I have mine set to about 28 milliseconds. Again, you can always experiment and come up with your own values. So now let's turn to the matrix here. This is where all of our connections are made, and so we don't have too many. We only have envelope 2 affecting our filter cutoff. So we're going to go ahead and select LFO number 1. That would be this guy over here. Set this to half note, so 1/2. And as for the destination, we are going to affect the master tuning. You'll find the master tuning right under global settings right over here. Now I'm going to exaggerate this. We're going to do some detuning, and as usual, we are going to scale this back. All right, a little much. All right, so if you find that it's going a little overboard by the time you get to values such as 1 or 2, you can always use this output column slider here and reduce its effect on the parameter. I'm going to set it to about 4. And maybe tweak the curve of our LFO here. All right, I'm also going to bump up the delay here. Now this has to do with when the LFO actually kicks in, so I don't want it to detune it right as the note is being struck. I'd rather have the detuning effect happen at the sustain portion of our sound, right? All right, so the initial chord will be in tune and then subsequently slowly start to detune itself, especially on those longer held chords, those sustained notes, all right? And so we can delay that detuning process here by manipulating this delay control here. All right, so let's play our song here in context and see if we can make any more improvements. All right, that's not too bad. I think we can make some improvements. So let's turn to our effects here. The first thing I want to do here is do some EQing. I know we can use the stock EQ8 courtesy of Ableton, but Serum has its very own. And it's really cool because we can, you know, carve out the sound to our liking. So I want to apply a sort of bandpass filter here, meaning that I'm going to cut out some of the lows, cut out some of the top end here. And so as it's playing, let's just make some adjustments. All right, so we are thinning out the sound here. You can see we're cutting out all this stuff. All right, now let's get rid of some of that top end here. Maybe that's a little much. Let's brighten it up. Open our filter. Okay, cool. All right, so the next thing I want to do here is add in the distortion. I want to add some warmth to our signal. So I'm going to slide the distortion after the EQ. And let me just lower the mix here and set it to pre. Let me increase the drive and open up that filter. All right, I'm going to open the filter a little more and maybe select another algorithm. I particularly like the soft clip here. Now you can hear that crunchiness at the top. We don't really want too much of that. This is what it sounds like if I exaggerate it. Let's scale this back a little. There we go, nice and warm. Let's do some A-Bing here. Sounds fuller, right? We're getting I guess a wider harmonic content in the frequency spectrum here, okay? Let's move on to the reverb here. I'm going to slide the reverb right after the distortion and just come up with some settings. Let's use our ears. Let's do some low cutting. Bump up the decay, the size. I'm going to set this to a hall. Let's do some A-Bing up front. Cool. Let's keep it moving. Finally, let's add a delay. I like to slide my delay after the reverb here. And right off the rip, I am going to select, let's say, 16th notes and 8th notes. I think this works for this type of tempo. All right, so let's make some adjustments here. Let's set it to ping pong, reduce the mix. And of course, see if we can tame some of those delays. Right, we don't have to go over the top with this. All right, cool. One more thing. So now that we have this all set up, let's go ahead and do some quick automation here. And I really urge us to consider automating some of these parameters. Sometimes, you know, our soundtracks can sound a little static. So right off the rip, when it comes to this filter, we're going to have it open right over here for this nice transition. We're going to have the filter sustain open up. If my mouse could cooperate, there we go. And we can even use one of these Ableton, you know, algorithms here. So now we have it set to, there we go, this fancy curve. There's a whole science behind how the human ear hears these sort of, what is it, logarithmic curves. So let's go ahead and see what this sounds like. There we go. So we're getting this nice gradual swell as we transition from the higher octave to the lower octave. And so we're doing that as our sustain. Remember this sustain here, this envelope is connected to this filter cutoff here. And so as we exit out of this passage, we have it getting brighter. All right, a nice smooth transition. All right, so that's it for this tutorial, guys. I hope this was helpful. I wanted to keep it nice and short and something versatile, something that we can all use, whether we're doing synthwave, chill wave, or another style of music. All right. If you're new to the channel, thank you so much for hanging out, and consider subscribing and liking the video. Now, if you've been here since the very beginning, I really thank you for your continued support. And that being said, stay safe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.